Here's another point of view. When we go plant-based only, we're eating lower on the food chain. Now, okay, so what? Well, it turns out that according to the government agencies, pesticides and herbicides are stored mostly in animal tissue. Like 95 to 97% are stored in animal tissue. Okay, so, well, if you eat lower on the food chain, you're less affected. You're only getting a few percent of the pesticides and herbicides and toxins that are stored in the animal tissue. Okay, so what difference does that make? Well, it makes a huge difference. Right now, today, we are looking at the sperm count for men around the world, not just the United States, around the world, okay, is about 50%. If it goes just a touch lower, many, many men will be infertile. Right now, well, actually, even 20 years ago, they found that only 25% of college students, men, were fertile. Were infertile, I mean. Didn't have enough sperm. Now, what's the problem? Well, it turns out pesticides, herbicides, and all those things specifically destroy the sperm. So we're looking now at worldwide, because of the pesticides and herbicides, almost kind of the ending of fertility. That's a big deal. Okay, so we're just on the edge. Now, I'm going to joke here, but that's if you're eating meat, fish, chicken, and dairy. Remember, that's 96 to 97%, 95 to 97% of where the toxins are. So if you go plant-based vegan, we're going to hypothesize, but it's research that needs to be done, you're going to see that there are going to be a lot more men with more viable sperm. Does that mean the vegans will take over the world? I don't know. But it's an interesting thought. Okay, just think about that for a moment. Because they're not being so exposed. Now, women are affected too. And it was just shared the other day of infertility clinics when they took them off the junk food, went to organic food, not even live food, organic food. I think it was like 125 couples. They all, 100% success, became fertile and were able to have kids. So it really does make a difference. What we eat really does affect our ability literally to reproduce as a species. So it's worth thinking. Now, women who are eating meat, fish, chicken, dairy, and so forth, vegan women have only 1% of the pesticides and herbicides in their breast milk as meat-eating women. 1%. That's huge, because it means the baby is not getting filled with pesticides and herbicides. So it does make a difference in a lot of things in terms of survival of the species. Now, we know it also preserves personal health. We know just vegan and live food is always amplified, but people who are plant-based have 32% less heart disease. They have 35 to 50% less diabetes. You drop high blood pressure from 26% to 2%. Osteoporosis is 1/4 the amount of meat eaters going vegan. So it goes down the line with a variety of things. Lung diseases, cancer, cancer of prostate 3.6 times more. People doing dairy have, twice as much. Lymphomas, and it goes on. Eggs, you get literally 3 times more ovarian cancer. The list goes on. Points made. Vitality and energy, I already talked about, but I'm just talking about the health part. How about feeding the world? I have projects all over the world in prediabetes, and I'm working in 5 countries in Africa, and Mexico, and Brazil, and different places. And one of the big issues is the animal meat-centered diet tends to really, it's huge resource taking. It's about, roughly speaking, in everybody, they're kind of estimates, it's about 12 times more resources. If the whole world went vegan, we'd be able to feed the world 7 times over. If everybody went live food, it'd be 12 times over. So it's huge, the difference it makes. So people in America, if just cut down their meat, fish, chicken, all that, 10%, there'd be enough food to feed the 60 million people, 20 to 60 million because they estimate, and 44,000 kids who starve to death each day. So we're doing vegan agriculture focus and getting grants for farmers to start doing that in Africa and Mexico and different places for that very reason. So it can feed the world. We have enough food easily to feed the world 7 times over. It's not an issue, okay? Obviously, it protects against animal cruelty. It protects the ecology. I mean, literally, a person who is vegan saves 1.5 million gallons of water a year. That's huge, okay? And I won't go into all the details of that, but it makes a difference. And you save the land because farming takes out way less land than raising cows and sheep and stuff like that. And back to, it protects the mind, because eating lower on the food chain takes away the pesticides, herbicides, and gets us back to the diet that's best for the mind. Now, it fulfills the yama niyamas, and what that means is the do's and don'ts. So you're not killing, you're not stealing animals' lives, stealing their souls, you're not stealing their skin and their fur, goes on and on. There's lots of pieces there, and also what we call the 10 speakings is the same thing. Okay, you don't murder, you don't steal, and so forth. It, as I explained, clears the nadis. The koshas are the layers of the mind. It doesn't contaminate that with the energy of death. And basically, it's the path, it's a diet for most spiritual paths. Now, it's not about about moral superiority. That we don't want to think that way. It's really about being responsible for our actions. The wise person knows the results of their actions. And so when you eat a certain way, you're going to get a certain result. That's what a wise person knows. That's what I'm sharing here. It's like, okay, that makes sense. Now, there are some mythological dangers. I'm going to call them mythological, because they really aren't true. But if you go, anybody goes to an acupuncturist and say, oh, no, you can't do that. It's not good for you. It's going to create a splenian deficiency. How many people have heard that? I'm just curious. Okay, right. So now you're going to see why it's total nonsense. There's reasons why they said that, because in the 1930s in China, pretty much the only people that basically survived and didn't die of malnutrition were the wealthy people who were able to eat some meat. But you can't draw a conclusion from that, except you have enough money to get some meats, so you can kind of survive. The rest, people had white rice and huge famine. So, spleen qi deficiency. Let's look at spleen qi deficiency. Weak digestion, blood sugar imbalances, weight problems, obesity, alcoholism and drug abuse, low vitality, and chronic fatigue. Okay, that's spleen qi deficiency. Now let's just get that in our mind. And now, what about strong spleen qi? Good energy, endurance, ability to grow and learn, good memory, emotional balance. So I just read the 520 people that we saw, and that's what they really had, wasn't it? Increase in vitality, increase in energy, increase in thinking, increase in artistic ability, less, 400% less depression, 300% less anxiety. Okay. So, what we're really saying is live food is the cure for spleen qi deficiency. Not the opposite. Not China in a famine in the 1930s. This is not what we're talking about. So people took that experience and made that as if that's the result of it. But what they were really describing is starvation and malnutrition. Very different. So it's the cure if you look at the real results with live food. Second myth is it creates a vata imbalance. Anyone ever heard that? Okay. So what's a vata imbalance? You're nervous, you're anxious, you get thrown out of balance real easily, you're super sensitive, you're very fragile. That's a vata imbalance. Now, this is an Ayurvedic term, okay? So, I work with people who are pure vata. There's three things, kapha, pitta, vata, and there's 9 different variations. But I'm just making a simple point for those who know about Ayurveda, is that what vatas need are warm, oily, salty, sweet-tasting, kind of watery foods. And if you do that, which you can easily do on live food without going into the details, you don't get a vata imbalance. And it's really easy to have that diet. I have a chapter on that in my book, Conscious Eating, how to balance it. So if you just take that approach. Now, if you are just eating leafy greens, yeah, you'll get a vata imbalance. Because that's totally, it's not good for vatas. But if it's sweet and oily and salty and warm, you get actually a vata balancing diet, which again is easy to do with live food. So that's the second myth that goes on. So, as Ralph Waldo Emerson said, society is always taken by surprise by any new example of common sense. We've got to apply a certain common sense when we talk about diet.